Two trail runners heard a rustling noise in the forest. Then they found 5 frightened creatures. Ashley Blake and her training partner, Joshua Scott, were running through the forest when a faint rustling caught their attention. The pair decided to interrupt their jog and investigate. That was when they found 5 frightened little animals.
Before we get started, take a moment to please subscribe to our channel, leave us a comment, and give us a like.
The Barkley Fall Classic is a testing 31-mile race through the brushy mountains in Frozen Head State Park, Tennessee. The event's designed to test the limits of runners' endurance. So when Blake and Scott signed up to compete in 2018, they knew they'd have to train hard. Well, the race wasn't scheduled to take place until September of 2018. By March of that year, Blake and her training partner Scott, both of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, had their running regime well underway. And that month, they visited Frozen Head State Park, where the Barkley Fall Classic takes place. During their training run, the pair would get an idea of the kind of terrain that they'd be facing during the event. The landscape was rough and rugged, which no doubt added to the challenges facing Blake and Scott. The pair were planning to complete the full 31-mile course around the park, so they put their heads down and got to work. Halfway through their run, however, something caught their eye, and it was so shocking that it forced them to abandon their training session. Blake and Scott were making their way down a wooded track when they spotted a pile of black fur. Upon further investigation, the runners could make out 5 tiny bodies, and despite the bitterly cold temperatures, the animals were still alive. In March of 2018, Blake told the Dodo, "It was just a little rustling that caught us. It's usual to hear forest critters, and that's what we expected. We turned and saw this black pile. It was 5 puppies huddled together." The pair had stumbled across 5 adorable black Labrador puppies. They were completely alone in the forest and were clustered together to keep warm. The sight tugged on Blake and Scott's heartstrings. As a result, they knew they had to help. "They were terrified and crying," Blake recalled. "They settled down once they realized we weren't going to harm them and we were warm. They were dumped without food, water, blanket, or mother." Leaping into action, the pair scooped the puppies up and delivered them to a park ranger. Sadly, he wasn't even shocked by the runner's story. In fact, he told Blake and Scott that pets often get dumped in the park. The park ranger explained that people leave animals in the area because it's so remote. As a result, they believe they can ditch pets without being seen. And in this case, it appeared that those responsible had gotten away with their actions. Luckily, though, the 5 puppies had been found before anything too terrible could happen to them, and they were now in the safe hands of Blake and Scott, who, along with park ranger, were eager to get the animals' lives back on track. The ranger agreed that he'd look after the puppies at his home for the time being. After that, he planned to hand them over to an animal shelter where they'd hopefully all find loving homes and families to take care of them. By this point, however, Blake and Scott were already invested in the 5 dogs' future, so they later transported the puppies to the shelter themselves. And the heartwarming story didn't end there. Blake's training partner Scott decided to adopt one of the dogs, in fact, whom he later named Barkley. The puppy slotted into his new family quite nicely, quickly bonding with Scott's 2 other dogs. And he wasn't the only member of the litter to have his happy ending. Eventually, forever homes were found for all the puppies, but if it hadn't been for Blake and Scott, they might not ever have survived for another day. So it was certainly a job well done by the 2 runners. Clearly proud of her exploits, in March of 2018, Blake posted her story to the Trail and Ultra Running Group's Facebook page. The site's usually reserved for posts about marathon running. Nonetheless, Blake's animal rescue tale went down a storm. Relaying the details of her rescue, Blake wrote, "Halfway through a Barkley Fall Classic 50K training run in Frozen Head, my training partner and I found a litter of 5 shivering puppies. With freezing temperatures and no food, they would surely not have made the night." Explaining how she and Scott had stepped in to help the puppies, Blake added, "The wonderful rangers met us and will bring them to the shelter today. Now we can add saving puppies to the list of ultra running activities." She later returned to the running site to add, "We took the puppies this morning to the shelter. Barkley is now part of my friend's family. He made a perfect birthday present."
Check out these other videos from Let Me Know. If you haven't made the move to subscribe to our channel, all you need to do is click on that red subscribe button. Thank you for watching.